So in this is perhaps one of the most famous passages of the prophet Micah, the famous beating the swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks and learning war no more. And in many ways, I think that a kind of an individual appropriation of this passage from Micah is the idea that, in a sense, a sword and a spear are still made out of metal. A sword and a spear still have sharp edges. They're hard, metal. And in a sense, following Jesus, doing the work of justice, having compassion, being in solidarity with those who suffer, is not something for soft metals. It's not something for, feathers. It's something where you need some iron in you. And the Lord, through the power of the Holy Spirit, if you think of the Holy Spirit as kind of a forge and a fire that can bend that metal, in the ways in which we have been given sharp edges, perhaps, the ways in which we've been made, the ways in which we've been toughened, the ways in which we've been hardened, instead of those things in our past, in our temperaments, being things that hurt other people, swords and spears. In the power of the Holy Spirit, God can transform even our wounds, our hardnesses, into things that create new life. That is, a plowshare opens up the earth. And that's hard work. It requires strength. It requires some sharpness, some hardness. A pruning hook is something that cuts and to prune the fig-bearing trees so that they can bear more fruit. These are things that serve the purpose of feeding God's people, of providing God's blessings. And so, in a sense, I think this passage can be hope for those of us who where kind of life has raised us up and we've had some hard edges given to us by the world. But God can redeem those things. God can turn that part of us, which is a sword, into a plowshare, into something that opens up the possibility of new life for others. Pruning hooks, something that is used to provide and to cultivate the trees, the blessings of the Lord. So I pray that in those hard edges, those sharp edges that we have, that the Lord would, through the power of the Holy Spirit, would transform those things. And instead of learning war, we can learn justice. We can learn to do the works of mercy and use the strengths, any strengths that we have, any hardnesses that we have, use those things on behalf of the life of the world, meaning the lives of those whom God has given us to touch. A reading from the prophet Micah. Hear this, you rulers of the house of Jacob and chiefs of the house of Israel, who abhor justice and pervert all equity, who build Zion with blood and Jerusalem with wrong. Its rulers give judgment for a bribe. Its priests teach for a price. Its prophets give oracles for money. Yet they lean upon the Lord and say, surely the Lord is with us. No harm shall come upon us. Therefore, because of you, Zion shall be plowed as a field. Jerusalem shall become a heap of ruins, and the mountain of the house a wooded height. In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised up above the hills. People shall stream to it, and many nations shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between many peoples, and shall arbitrate between strong nations far away. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more, but they shall all sit down under their own vines and under their own fig trees, and no one shall make them afraid. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken. For all the peoples walk, each in the name of its God. But we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.